Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for our phonics and reading webinar. I'm very sorry for the slight delay there. We had a bit of a technical hitch in that we were in a different room to you. So we were there and ready, but we weren't linked through to you. But it's good to be joined by you now. So we're looking forward very much for our webinar today. It's a really important topic, phonics and reading. One of the most important things you can do for your child is give them a solid foundation in phonics and in their ability to read and then to write as well. It goes right through the whole of their education, the building blocks that you're putting in place in their early years. So I'm really pleased that Hayley, our Key Stage 1 and Early Years coordinator, is going to lead us through this webinar. So I'll hand over to Hayley just now.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm really pleased that I've been given this opportunity to offer this webinar to you and to introduce our new Read, Write and Phonics program that we're using at the school. I do have a passion for phonics and children's reading, so really happy and excited to share this with you. Okay, so we're going to be having a look today at our phonics and reading. So let's first think about what exactly is Rebranding. So this is a program that was created by a lady called Ruth Miskin in the UK. She was a teacher who had obviously worked in many schools around the UK and had tried many different programs and took basically the best of a whole bunch of different programs and created this phonics scheme. And the scheme works by teaching obviously phonics to work towards reading, and after that, towards our writing. And within this program, it is centered around learning our letter sounds. So not the letter names, for example, A, B, C, the letter sounds, A, B, K. And also then using these for blending them together to be able to read words. And not only just for blending, but obviously children need to learn how to break these words down into individual sounds when they then start writing. And this is called segmenting. Now, let's talk about how Read, Write, Inc. works at KTJ. Now, firstly, we introduced it this school year within our early years and Key Stage 1. And we first introduced it, obviously, in our nursery classes. And those are the children who are 3 to 4-year-olds. Now, within that, we then move from our nursery, and the children in the early years foundation stage, as well as Key Stage 1, are assessed by their classroom teachers and grouped according to their abilities. Now, we all know that different children progress at different levels. So some children that are working slower will then be repeated and assessed some more and supported some more, whereas the children who are learning their sounds much quicker will then be moved up to a different group. What we try and do is work in smaller groups. That way children get a lot more attention and can focus on their specific needs. And these groups will then split up between the different teachers and with the teaching assistants. And we try and do this at least 4 or 5 times every single week within the earliest foundation stage and within Key Stage 1. Now, they are assessed in the beginning, placed into these groups, and then work throughout the term on the different sets and phases of phonics that they're busy with. Then, at the end of each term, the children will then be assessed again to check which progress they have made. And either they will then stay in their current group or move up a group. In addition to this rewriting program, obviously children are not just learning the basics of phonics. They are taking these basics of phonics and start working on their writing skills. They have their storytelling, because we do a lot of storytelling through learning our phonics in the classes and with the teachers. So starting at phonics, it builds onto so much more for these children. Okay, next slide. Now, how will Read, Write, Inc. be taught? So firstly, in our nursery, we introduce the children to the initial sounds of the words. So M for mat, A for apple, S for snake, for example. And these are given in the nursery in very short sessions Obviously, concentration levels of children that are younger is not as long as it is with older children. So short little bursts of information are a lot more important. And obviously, they're done very practically with the little ones. Lots of photos, lots of things that they can touch and feel in the classroom, looking for things around the classroom. Let's start with those letters. So very visual learning takes place with the nursery children. As they then move into reception, we learn how to read the sounds in words and how they sound. So they're not going to read, for example, M-A-T for mat. They will learn M-A-T for mat, helping them know these sounds and to be able to break down words much easier. Once they then move on to Key Stage 1, which means our Year 1 and Year 2 children, we then move into more complex sounds. So a lot more digraphs, trigraphs, special partners, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And they also then are reading a lot more books that are linked to the phonics group that they are busy working on. So within our Key Stage 1, we also try and do lessons roughly 3 to 5 times a week. And obviously, what we do with our phonics program is we also try and integrate it with children in Key Stage 2 who might need some support if they are EAL learners who have been English as their second language coming into our school higher up. And we will also use this for our special needs, any children with SEN needs. Just support them because it's nice and practical. Okay, so our program is divided into 3 separate sections: the reading, the writing, and the talking. So you need the reading part first. And within our phonics program, we learn that there are 44 sounds and the corresponding letters and letter groups using 6 simple pictures and prompts. It says see below. So if you can see in the corner over here, I have a picture of, for example, M for mountain, F for apple, S for snake. I will talk a little bit more about these in a minute, but it's a very visual program that helps the children to identify which letter and which picture work together. And this gives them clues as they are working later on. They also learn to read the words using Fred Talk. I will be talking more about Fred Talk in a second, but basically Fred Talk is learning the letter sounds and how to segment and blend them together. They will also read from a range of storybooks. Now, obviously, younger children that cannot read, it would be a guided reading session. Either way, they are supported with their reading, or the teacher is reading a book to them. These can be both fiction books, non-fiction books, whichever books actually just relate to the phonics group that they are working on. Because if they relate to it, they will understand it and enjoy it so much more. Obviously, when we are working as well, we do look for children to work both independently and with a partner. Now, once they have tried to figure out all these sounds and how they work together, we will then move on to the writing. So once they know the sound, m-a-t, we then want them to start learning how to write these letters. So they will learn to write and form the letters and letter groups represented by these sounds. Now, this is obviously a lot more trickier than just learning how to sound them out. So letter formation is really tricky for some children. That's why read writing is so great, because using the pictures, for example, with we get Maisie over the mountain. So there's a little story to go with it, which makes it much easier for them to learn the formation of those letters. They will then also use the phonic sounds of blending the Fred Talk and use those into writing. And obviously, they will then progress from there to learn to build sentences by practicing sentences first orally and then writing them down. And then we move to talking. Now, obviously, talking happens throughout, right from the beginning stages, obviously, to the end, because children need to be verbalizing what they understand all the time. So teachers will be asking a lot of questions. The children will be working in pairs. So answering questions is very important so we know what they have understood. You need to practice activities with a partner so they can ask each other questions. They can ask each other to write down some of the letters. They can take turns in talking. They can take turns within reading. And obviously with a friend, you can be quite ambitious and they can try different sounds and different words with each other. Okay, next slide. Thank you. Now, There are 5 key principles that underpin the teaching of Read, Write, Ink. And now this is not just for us as teachers, because of the situation we're in now, this is you as parents as well, as you are supporting your children at home. So firstly, there needs to be purpose behind what you are doing. So you can't just go into a lesson with no actual goal. What do you actually want to achieve by the end of this lesson? So purpose is very important. Participation is the second one, and this means you do not want the children or your child at home to just sit and stare at a screen or just sit and stare at you. You want them to take part. You want them to be verbalizing what they are hearing. You want them to sound out some words. You want them to write it on a whiteboard. You want them to be actively involved in each lesson. And for me, one of the most important is obviously praise. Children need positive reinforcement all the time. Number one, to boost their confidence. They really have to build confidence in phonics to be able to develop. And even if they get it wrong, we would praise by saying, good try, well done, let's have another go. So praise is incredibly important to encourage the confidence and development of your children's phonics. Pace is another one, because if you rush through something, it might go way over your child's head or the children in the classroom. That's why we have our smaller groups, because working at the correct pace for each child is very important. Grasping understanding of each stage is vital before you move on to the next stage. And the final one is passion. Now this, especially for teachers, is a no-brainer. We have to love what we are doing. We have to have passion ourselves to be able for the children to then have passion for what they are learning about. Because if we look excited and we are enjoying it and we are encouraging them, they will then feel the same. Okay, next slide. Now, when we specifically look at our Read, Write, Ink phonics program, it is divided into 3 sets. Our first set are the speed sounds of set 1, and these are just the basic sounds basically. I'm not going to read through all of them with you, but for example, K for kangaroo, H for horse, G for girl, S for snake. So you will not be saying P, F, E, L. We do not want the letter names. This is all about learning the letter sounds. And as I said, set 1 is the more basic, and you're going to move straight into set 2, because once you're confident in set 1, adding set 2 is pretty easy. In set 2, as you can see, we then start looking at digraphs and trigraphs. So a digraph is then our 2 letters brought together, for example, A, or, U, those sounds. And then we also have our trigraphs, which are 3 letters, for example, I and air. So most of the children within reception are currently working on set 2, and by the time they get into year 1, they will move on to set 3. But saying this, each group is different, each child is different, so different children in different year groups could be learning different sets. But currently this year, our reception children are now doing revision on our set 2 sounds. As they go into key stage 1, they will move then on to set 3. Oh, that's okay. Next slide. That's fine. Thank you. Then, as they're moving up into key stage 2, and in fact, in year 2, but in fact moving into key stage 2, they will start looking at more complex speed sounds. So the top one, as you can see, has some of our set 3 sounds, but you're looking at different variations of how these can be spelt. So the F sound could be a single F, double F, or PH, for example. You then move on to the consonant sounds, and then onto the vowels. Now, one of the things I want to also make a clear point of is that some of our sounds are called stretchy sounds. So they're longer sounds, for example, S, whereas some of our other sounds are bouncy, so short, quick sounds, for example, B, G, J. So the children are taught the difference between the bouncy short sounds and the stretchy long sounds. And then once they have gotten all of these correct and they're quite confident in these, we are also looking at the very wide variety of ways that children can then learn their vowels. So obviously in set 2, they're learning A as in AY, but in set 3, they will go to the A with the magic E and the AI. So they'll be learning the variations of how to pronounce or how to use the different sounds. Now, this program is a very practical program that you're going to be using, and you need to assist the children as soon as they have learned the first 5 sounds. So if we're looking back at set 1, the first 5 sounds would be M, A, S, D, and T. So these are only 5 letters, but within these 5 letters, the children can already learn to blend up to 9 or 10 words. For example, am, sad, sad, dad, dad, sat, sat. So there's a huge range of words that the children can already start reading just from the first 5 sounds. And the great part about this is the children get so excited knowing that they can already read words from the onset. It builds their confidence so quickly. And can I also just remind you that this is, in the beginning, verbally being able to blend these words together. Later on, they will do the actual writing of the words. But the fact that you could then say, am, and they can then repeat, am. If you can say, sat, and they can repeat, sat. So right from set 1, the first 5 sounds, your children will already be able to start blending and using these to read some simple words. Now, in the picture here, it shows you, sorry, thank you, Mr. James. It shows you fingers. So Fred fingers, I'm going to show you here on the screen as well. It shows you some Fred fingers. And what that means is we take the sounds to make it more visual for the children to understand. We hold the fingers up and they have to touch the edges of their fingers. For example, ka-at, and then we make a rainbow over it, cat, for example. So the children are hearing it, but they're also touching and feeling to get the idea of how many sounds there are. Thank you. Then we start moving on to them listening a lot more to the words, and we use green words to help them do this. So we have something called Fred Talk, and Fred is a little frog, which I'll show you in a minute. And we use Fred to do Fred talking, which means these are words that can be sounded out. For example, pan, pan. Fred can only sound out words, and we then help him to blend these words to be able to read them. We also introduce the children red words. And the little sentence says here, if it's red, it's hard for Fred. So red words are our tricky words. These are words that cannot be sounded out, and these are words that children just need to learn. And to do that, it's obviously something you need to just do continuously. You need to be looking at these words as often as possible, and it's a visual thing. They just need to visualize the word and be able to read it. So we have a good balance between the two. Now, what I'd like to do is just show you a basic sequence of a lesson. And I'm going to show you a few of the resources. So I have the pictures up here on the screen, but I'm going to show you them. I have them here with me. So firstly, you're going to introduce the children to the sound. So for example, here we go. I have the sound ch, ch, ch. So I would say ch, and the children ch. So you point to yourself when you are saying the word, and you point to the children when you would like them to say the word. So this is the sound ch. And you then discuss with them if it's a stretchy sound or a bouncy sound. And ch is a bouncy sound. It's quite a quick sound. Ch. Then what we do is we then turn it over and introduce them to the picture sound. So the picture that goes with it. So they can then visualize the ch sound. They will know how we have, let me put this over here, curly caterpillar and the h for horse to make our ch sound. And they will then visually remember how to write ch by reading the sentence. And the sentence for this one, for example, is the horse sneezes when the caterpillar hairs tickle his nose. So the children know the sentence and they can then visualize how to write the ch sound by thinking of what the picture looked like. It has honestly been so amazing to me to see how quickly the children have remembered these. If you go to the more simple sounds like the and the it's one simple picture for the children to learn. And as you are holding the sound card and they get stuck, you can quickly turn over to give them a clue, just a second, and that visually reminds them of what the actual sound is. So it's a great program to use. Then what you will do is you'll recap all the sounds. So for example, I have a pack of all of set 2s. So you can either take the whole pack or you can just take a couple of them. And each time you do phonics, you're going to revise and go over the sounds as often as possible. And if they get stuck, you give them a quick look and you will then keep on going. We then move on from doing our cards to having our green words, as I mentioned. So our green words also have 2 sides to them. Now, we use, especially with the younger children, this side, which shows you there are lines underneath and dots. So a long line underneath would show the digraph that is there, and the dot just shows the single sound. So the children, this helps them when they're actually sounding or blending the word. And we remind them that these are Fred words. So this word, for example, would have 3 sounds, and I would go sh, k, shook. And then they would know how many sounds that Fred made and how to actually sound out the word. Once we have finished our Fred words with our green cards, we would then move on to practicing our tricky words, which look on our red cards. So for example, of, and then on the other side, it also it tells you where the child can focus, what the focus is on that word. I can show you another one, for example, I, and we, instead of them saying yeah, because they're used to the letter yeah, we will show them that it makes the I sound, I, my. So as we do our tricky words, the children will then be more confident to practice them over and over and visually just identify them as they see them. The tricky words are obviously a lot trickier than the green words, so need a lot more practice. So the children need to practice reading the red words, and much later on, they will then learn how to write these words. And children will write the words with the sun of the day. So each day they need to practice, whether it's just practicing to write a or you're practicing to write atta, they will have some form of written work each time they take part in a lesson. And that's basically the structure of how a lesson works. And as a teacher, as well as you as parents, we can go through the structure quite easily. It's quite repetitive each time, which you would think gets monotonous, but it doesn't, because each time it's a new card, it's a new picture, it's new sounds for them to use. So parents, there are so many ways that you can help your children. So firstly, like any type of learning, we need to make it as fun as possible. And I've put quite a few pictures here that could help, which are showing you some fun, as well as showing you how multi-sensory activities are really great ways of bringing your children in, drawing them into an activity where they are physically touching something or drawing something or making something, as well as then obviously keeping them engaged, because if they just have to write down words every time, super boring. Okay, we need to get them to try new things. So, for example, we have a little girl using magnetic letters. So that could be up on your fridge at home, or if you have a magnetic board somewhere, and you could say a word, and they could then build the word up with magnetic letters. The word the, so one of our tricky words, they've got examples there how you could put maybe flour or baby powder on a surface, and the children can then try and write the word in that, or on a chalkboard, or in some sand, just to make it a bit more hands-on and feely, so that their brains can remember how to actually do it. a really great way, which has become very popular now during online learning, is using chalk outside, either on the side path or on the road, wherever you stay, obviously on your paving outside, and you can get the children to write the words on the floor. And another thing they could do after this is they can then get a water bottle, for example, fill it with water, and you could then say, okay, go and spray the letter and they could spray it until the disappears. Or you can say, go and spray the word dog, and they've got to go and find the word dog that's been written down, and they can then spray the word dog till it disappears. Another great one sorry, Mr. James. Another great one picture over here is of, if you can see the little boy with the gun. So he has taken his gun, the mom has put some tricky words up on the board, and as you say the tricky word, your child tries to shoot it either with a water gun or with, I guess, whatever kind of plastic guns some of the kids have, and just to make it a really fun, engaging one. And although I have these cards and teachers use the cards that I've shown you, you can very easily make your own cards, as you can see in the picture with the red. Now, the very final thing I'd like to say, a way that you could help your children, if you are perhaps not that confident with doing phonics lessons with your children, is firstly by visiting the Read Write Inc. website, number one. But for you as a parent, I think a very valuable resource to you at the moment is going onto YouTube and getting the link for Read Write Inc. And they at the moment are offering daily lessons which have now been recorded, and you can go on and find all the daily phonics lessons from set 1, set 2, and set 3. So it's a great resource at the moment that Read Write Inc. is offering to all parents. Another great resource it's called Oxford Owl. And Oxford Owl is a reading resource, because I've written over here, daily reading is without a doubt one of the most important things you can do with your child. And we all have been at home for a long time, so we might be running short of some books. And if you go onto the Oxford Owl website, it is free to register for parents, and you have a wide range of books from beginning levels all the way to much higher. And within this website, children can either listen to the story, or you can put it on mute, and then they can read the story out, which is great. So these are ways that you as parents can support your children at home. And I just want to mention one last thing: make it fun. You need to enjoy it, and your children need to enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much, Ms. Hayley. I think that was a wonderful presentation, and I'm sure our parents found that extremely helpful. Now, Ms. Hayley's been fantastic at introducing Read Write Inc. At KTJ. It really has gone so well, and it's been a pleasure to go into some of the lessons and see in the early years and in Key Stage 1 just how engaged the children are and how much fun they are having, because it really is bringing phonics to life for the children and making it really engaging. And just like Miss Hayley said during the presentation there, the different characters for the different shapes of the letters, the children are remembering the sentences that go with them, and it is really helping them to learn those letter sounds. So very pleased with how it's going at school, and it's wonderful to get parents' help at home as well. So I'm sure you got a lot from that presentation, and many thanks to Miss Hayley for putting that together for us this evening. Thank you, Hayley. Okay, so we've got an opportunity now for any questions. We can ask Miss Hayley some questions. So if I go onto the chat, lots of people saying thanks very much, Miss Hayley, first of all, and one of the parents actually pointing out another one of the P's. So we had about praise, didn't we, and purpose, and all those other P's. Patience as well is very important too, isn't it? Absolutely right, as a parent. Quite right. And actually, I think, yeah, you do need to know that, don't you? Because you might, if you're impatient and you're thinking, oh, why hasn't my child got this straight away? It stops it being fun for everyone, doesn't it? Yeah. So I think we can all agree with that patience is really important. In terms of questions, if a child is struggling to read and maybe finding it hard, what would you recommend for a parent there?
Well, firstly, there's always a reason behind why your child is struggling. So one of them is possibly that they might have been exposed to various different programs if they have moved from one school to another, for example. One of the other reasons could be that when they were doing their phonics, they have been rushed through the phonics program and don't have the basics. And if they don't have those basics, they are going to find it more difficult, obviously, as they're going along. So one of the things I would then recommend firstly is speaking to the class teacher and getting the teacher to do a phonics assessment with them if it hasn't been done already, and checking the exact level that your child is then on, and where the cracks are, where the possibility of something that went wrong or something that went missing in between. And I would personally just say, start again. There is no rush in getting your child to start. So you need to start fresh with this work, and give your child time to learn the phonics correctly to be able to move on. Do not get them to just parrot fashion learn to read the book, because that's not going to help them later on. So do the basics, get the basics correct. And I can guarantee that if you question or ask your teacher about this, she'll be very willing to help you with that. And bringing enjoyment into the reading with your child as well will help them gain that confidence a little bit more.
Brilliant, absolutely right. Another question here, and I think this is one that is relevant right across the school, right through, in fact, right through our lives as well, but it starts very early on, doesn't it, a lot of reading. So how would you help to promote a lot of reading in the children? What could parents do there?
Okay, well, firstly, if they see you reading and enjoying books, they are going to do what you do. That's what children do. Children copy other people. If they are going to see you, unfortunately, at this day and age and what we're going through, sitting on an iPad all the time or a phone, that could cause some issues. So number one, you have to be the role model. So reading to your child as often as possible, but more importantly, reading them books that they are interested in. If you're going to read stuff that's got no interest, there's no ways your child is going to stay engaged. So finding something that is of interest to them. I would also choose an appropriate place and an appropriate time to read. I think that's very important. So whether it's before they go to bed every night, read a story, and also a quiet place, not distractions around them when they are either reading to you or you are reading to them. Something that's also very important is once you've read it, or as you are busy reading the story, ask them questions. Ask them, see if they're actually comprehending what is happening in the story. Because then you will see the enjoyment, because they can share their thoughts about what's happening in the book with you. Another one that's really important is if they are doing the reading, try and help them identify some of the trickier words before you start. So a lot of the school reading books, for example, have a list on the front cover of what the actual tricky words are in the book. So if you go over those first, once they start reading, they'll feel a bit more confident to read those words. And that confidence, again, helps them to then continue. And I think probably one of the most important, and which links with the P that was mentioned in the comments, is just having patience. Because when they are starting out to read, and as they are gaining in the higher phonics words and the bigger sounds and more tricky words, you just need patience for them to decipher and to work through those words. Don't read it for them. Give them that time to try and figure it out first. And my number one tip with everything, positive praise.
Brilliant. Thank you, Miss Hayley. That's wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, and I would just add just to that as well. One thing that I think parents can be very good at reading to their children when they're younger. And it's often, that's kind of what we expect to happen. Maybe we read to our children when they're younger, but actually carrying on reading to your children as they get older and into Key Stage 2 is still a really good idea, because what you're doing is you're modeling, like Miss Hayley said there, the love of reading with your child, but also you're probably exposing them to books and to vocabulary that maybe they wouldn't have read themselves as well. So having a sort of reading culture within your house is a really good idea as well, and that's another way to do it. I think that's been a brilliant webinar. Thank you so much, Miss Hayley, for all your hard work and the presentation today. And thank you, parents, for joining us. I'm sure you got lots from that. And the website that Miss Hayley mentioned, the Read Write Inc. and the Oxford Owls, I'll send links to those home in my letter to parents on Friday this week as well, so you've got access to that. And the webinar is being recorded as well, so you should have access to that on our YouTube channel, the school's YouTube channel, later on as well, when that's been put on there, so you can go back and refer back to it as well. So thanks ever so much for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you later, and thanks for all your support. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.